the name of our ancestors whose legacy we must all bear. I bear witness as an African man, and we bear witness as African people, that as our beginning was great and good, so shall our development to eternity be. So if you dare, you speak truth, you do justice, and you walk in the ways of righteousness. In the name of African people that were the first people to populate the world, as you heard, we say that let him that is worthy be worthy still, let him that is righteous be righteous still, and let him that is wicked be wicked still. Because behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give unto every man and woman for and according to his reward should be. For in the beginning was a black woman, and this woman gave rise to a human. Actually, this woman started here where we're starting, and that is why the topic for today is very poignant in asking ourselves the most important question. Is this really a jubilee of 50 years of Uganda? Is this 50 years of Uganda? Has Uganda been in existence for 50 years? Has Uganda, is a Uganda a new country, or is it an old country? Are we living in a time of recent or in a time of the ancient? That is a question that we have to deal with today, that we have to answer in the short time that is available to us to see whether really we should be celebrating 50 years of Uganda. And are you celebrating at home? Is this really a celebration for all of us? Or is it a celebration for a few of us? A few people who always appear at the same function, who always use euphemisms of, all of us. The whole country is celebrating. The majority of us have gone through wonderful periods. The economy has been growing by this percentage. So who should be celebrating? First of all, let us return even to the word jubilee. Where do we get the word jubilee from? The word jubileus, which is Latin. Why do we have the word jubilee, and who do we trace it to? You will find that the word jubilee is an ancient Egyptian word, and it is an ancient Egyptian festival known as Hebuseb. The Hebuseb, or the festival of the tail, or the celebration of the tail. Hebuseb was a festival from ancient Egypt. It was celebrated by the Egyptians. Actually, we can trace it almost to the pharaoh who was called Nswera. In Uganda, I suppose you'd say Nswera. In Angola, you'd say Maremi, but Nswera of the 5th dynasty. 5th dynasty, you're looking at about, 5,000 years ago. And the festival is well decorated, is well depicted in Saqqara, from this Egyptian pharaoh. This festival of Hebuseb was a festival that the Egyptian celebrated, that the Egyptian pharaoh would celebrate after every 30 years. After every 30 years. Not 50 years. A jubilee in ancient Egypt was celebrated after every 30 years. And every 30 years because the Egyptians believed in metaphysics. The Egyptians believed in a spiritual form that is far higher than what we understand today. The word three was very important to the Egyptians, where we get the whole concept of a trinity. A trinity, a triad, almost everything appears in three. The brain of a child doesn't begin to form until after 3 weeks. It will then divide into 3 parts. The forebrain, the midbrain, and the hinterbrain. The child is not, a woman doesn't know she's pregnant until after 3 weeks again. And she will give birth after 3 times 3. You will find that most parts of the body, especially of the brain and the cell, always divide into 3. So for the ancient Egyptian, 3 was a sacred number, a number which they cherished. So if a king finished 30 years, then they would celebrate a jubilee. Now, if the king didn't make 30 years, then they would promise him in the afterlife that once the king is dead, or once the king has gone and died, then it means that that particular king, he will have millions of jubilees in the afterlife. But this festival was celebrated to rejuvenate the king, to test the king, to see if the king was still fit, was still credible, was still able to govern a state. And if the king didn't match this governance. If he wasn't physically fit, he would not be allowed to renew his tenure. He would be kicked out. In fact, they had a ceremony like in Saqqara in Egypt. There was a courtyard where the king was supposed to run 30 times without a break. And if the king didn't make that 30 times, then they would know that the king was unable. Now, also in ancient Africa, the African had this practice where you could rule as a king, but if they found that for reason of age or for some reason you didn't match or marry your words to your action and to your physique, then you would be put to death. It was done for kings. It was also done for heads of family. Those of you who come from Ankole, the word in Nyankole is called doctasia. It would be like euthanasia. You'd be forced to kill yourself or you would be killed. Because as a leader or as a king, you are not fit, to exercise your duties. So the festival, or the Hebusebai also said, was called the Festival of the Tail, because the other kings of ancient Egypt would wear animal skin with a tail on it. Some of you have seen the movie Shaka Zulu. You will recall that Shaka Zulu is wearing a huge, beautiful garment, but it has a tail. So because the king had a tail, so they always thought that this Hebuseb festival, the king, because of the tail, they called it the Festival of the Tail. So now, most of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs that we know, like Akhenaten, the pharaoh Hatshepsut, the one who organized an expedition to the country that we now call Uganda, all of them had jubilees. So this jubilee was taken by the Hebrews into Judaism, and I think the Bible in the book of Leviticus, I believe it is chapter 14, verse 3, or chapter 14, verse 3, they talk about the Jubilee. But the Hebrews, they have a sabbatical year, a sabbatical Jubilee of 50 years. Now, the Greeks, also adopted the Jubilee, and thenceforward it was taken to the Romans, and the Romans now have taken it over to the British and the Americans. Remember that the people who founded the United States, were all Freemasons, and the Freemasons, they imitate the secret societies from ancient Africa. So, let's now look at Uganda at 50. And just like the festival is ancient, so is Uganda. Uganda too is not a recent country. Uganda is an ancient country. Uganda is a country that has been in existence for a long time. The British just stole the letter B and created Uganda. But that doesn't mean that we're a recent people. We are an ancient people. This can be demonstrated by looking at the ancient maps. If you look at the ancient maps, you will see that this whole territory was called Egypt. And south of this Egypt was the territory of the Ethiopians of Thebes, known as the tallest, the wisest, the most just of all men. So if you look at the maps of the Carthaginians, our cousins, if you look at the maps of the Numidians, if you look at the maps of the ancient Egyptians and the Greeks and the Romans, we have the maps of Ptolemies. The Ptolemies, who succeeded in Egypt after the 25th dynasty that produced Shabaka, Tahaka, Shabataka. Then you will see that Uganda, the whole of Uganda, from Egypt to today to here on the eastern side of the Nile, there was a land that was called Egypt Superior. And on the left side of the Nile, you have Egypt Interior. South of Egypt Superior and Egypt Interior was the lake, which is the Lake Nyanza. And down Lake Nyanza, then you have what is now called Ethiopia. And Ethiopia stretched almost up to Malawi. Ethiopia stretched, including Zimbabwe. And Ethiopia stretched, including countries of Zambia and southern Tanzania and part of Congo. This was part of Ethiopia, the Ethiopia of ancient times that extended almost up to China, the Ethiopia whose names are adopted after Indo-Kush in Afghanistan, the Ethiopians who send the country that used to send ambassadors by sea. We are the people that used to send ambassadors by sea. We are the people that used to put boats on the the lakes and make them float, that discovered the art of navigation, what we call now oceanography, where shows that the whole of Africa at one time was called Ethiopia. And the oceans that you see, like the Indian Ocean today, was called the Ethiopian Ocean. Then the Atlantic Ocean was called Atlantic Ocean or Ethiopian Ocean, the Ocean Ethiopicus. Now, in most of the maps up to the 15th century, this is a fact that is universally established. So don't talk to me about Uganda being 50 years. Don't talk to me about Kenya being 49 years. Don't talk to me about Nigeria or Tanzania or any of these countries. These are ancient countries, and their ancientness is a fact universally admitted. And it is also established that humanity started here in the region between the Great Lakes. Just like the British named Kenya, they saw a mountain the people called Kirinyaga, and they named the land there, they called it Kenya, after a mountain called Kirinyaga. Just like the British went to Nigeria, and they found a country, and they organized a competition in 1913 to name a country that is around the Niger. And that competition was organized by the wife of a plunderer named Lugard. And Fiona Shaw, who was the wife of Lady Lugard, won a competition in the Times newspaper of London to name the area around the Niger, and they called it Niger area. Everywhere the British went, they gave a name. Where they store gold, they called it Gold Coast. Where they store elephant tusks, they called it Ivory Coast. Where they store, gold and, as in Guinea, they called it the Guinea Coast. And unfortunately for our leaders, we have maintained these silly names that have no bearing in ancient time, that don't mean nothing to us, because Uganda is not a new country. Uganda is an ancient country. If anything, Britain is a recent country. Britain didn't exist in ancient time. Europe didn't exist in ancient time. In ancient time, there was actually no Europe. Europe is a misnomer. It is part of Asia, because Europe is not even a continent. A continent is supposed to be massive landmass that is surrounded by water. Now, Europe is not massive and it is not surrounded by water. It is actually Eurasia. It is part of Asia. Congo, the so-called Democratic Republic of Congo, is bigger than Europe. Thankfully for that country, it takes its name after an ancient river. But Uganda, the land that they call Uganda, the land between the lakes, the so-called intercrustean region, the land that gave us the Bunyoro-Chitara Empire, the empire of the Bachwezi. For example, the Bachwezi were the ancient Egyptians that came down south after they've been invaded by the Asiatic in 663. So we are looking at a country that is totally ancient. Uganda is an ancient country, but it was called Egypt. Part of it was called Egypt Superior, part of it was called Egypt Interior. Now, if you go in the Bible and you see that Moses was born in Egypt, just associate him with the Basoga or the Achori, because he was picked on the Nile. The Nile is in this land. He was picked in papyrus reeds. Papyrus reeds are in Busoga. And he was married to an Ethiopian as an Ethiopian wife, as in the book of Numbers chapter 12 verse 1 says. And if he was married, his wife is probably the relative of Karori, who sang One Cheke Chanke Binyewa, from northern Tanzania. Or his wife is from the Nyamwezi or the Chaga or the Basukuma. So, Uganda is not a recent country. Uganda is not a creation of the British. And what a joke that we are to invite our former colonizers, our enemies, people who took us into slavery, and say, come, let us honor you. Come and be at our function of celebration. We should be taking them to court. We should be suing them. We should be holding them accountable. We should not even let them anywhere close. We should be denying them food the way they did it to us. We should be asking them to pay compensation like the king of Bunyoro has done. That is a grave act. It was really horrible to see the Queen of England come to visit Uganda and a lot of Baganda celebrating and talking about how the Queen Some say how she was dressed properly in her woolen God knows blanket that she wrapped around herself. We should have got that queen and asked her to pay compensation for years of colonialism, years of slavery, to pay for years of exploitation that the British has exploited the Baganda, imposing taxes and stealing the land. Whereas the Baganda are now asking everybody that they complaining that people are stealing their land. The queen stole it. And nobody is complaining. Now, if you can't complain, the queen who stole almost the whole country and called it crown land, then he got even some of the chiefs of Uganda, and he made them knights. And people laugh and say, oh, he's a knight, Sir Richard, Sir this. How do you become a king? How do you, as a king of a people, accept to be a soldier in the British Empire, an evil empire at that colonized and raped and murdered and killed and pillaged all these civilizations? These are some of the things that we must look at critically as a nation to say, in fact, when you saw a picture of the Sir Edward Mutesa or Daudi Chwa, please refrain from showing Daudi Chwa or Kabaka Mutesa wearing a colonial uniform of the British Army and holding a sword, because he would have knelt before that Queen of England, and the Queen would have put a sword on his neck, saying that the neck of the King of Uganda belongs to him. Kings do not do such a thing. Certainly when we ruled the world, that is not what we did. When Ethiopia ruled the world, that is not what Ethiopia did. So, Uganda is an ancient country. In fact, we could trace Uganda from life at the embryonic age. At different stages, humanity life in its embryonic age begins about 3.5 million years, and it transforms from the animals to the age of fish, the 250 million years, and then it goes into about 80 million years, the period that we call Prosimian. But after 80 million years, by the time we see the Prosimian, we find that most of the reptiles had transformed into mammals. 70 million years, we have what we call, in terms of eras, the Cenozoic era. The Cenozoic era begins 70 million years, and that is the era that we are still in today. It is an era that shows the emergence of mammals. And when we say mammals, mammals are creatures that suckle, their young. They suckle their young with milk produced by the female of their species. That is how mammals are described. The creatures that suckle their young with a breast produced by the female members of their species. So that Cenozoic era begins about 70 million years. And at that time you see the reptiles. The reptiles, mammals emerge from reptiles. And the reptiles coexist with mammals. Some of these reptiles were what we call the dinosaurs. They were bigger than mammals. Mammals, however, were cunning. They escaped into trees. And, with the change in climate, it led to the destruction of the dinosaurs and other bigger reptiles. And then the mammals survive, but they survive in trees. And that time the whole world is blanketed in a forest. Now, 50 million years, when you get the tectonic movement that divides the whole world and separates the rest of the world from the center of the earth, which is Uganda, where we are, or East Africa, which is the area that was called Uganda, but in Ethiopia, we called it Ethiopia, we called it ancient Egypt. Now, this ancient land is divided 50 million years when we call it the tectonic movement. This tectonic movement creates a big plate where we are standing. Underneath us is a rock, a plate, which is about 3,000 kilometers, and that is the African plate. Underneath the plate is the outer core. Underneath the outer core is the inner core, and that inner core is really brimstone. It's almost like fire. Now, between us and the plate is what we call the crust. That is the soil that we dig, and we dig holes. That is called the crust. But at that plate, the whole of the plate, the African plate, was separated, severed. The whole world at one time was really Africa, but it severed and it broke into small pieces 50 million years ago, and that creates the African plate. But within 20 million years, within 20 million years, again there is another tectonic movement that creates the Rift Valley. That creates different plates, the African plate, the Nubian plate, the Somali plate, and the Arabian plate that meet in a place that we call Afar River Junction, which is very significant that where they met, where these plates meet is almost where in 1985, a man called Donald Johansson, in an area called Hada in Ethiopia, together with Sesfai, discovered Lucy, the oldest, one of the oldest human beings at the stage of Australopithecine. But let me just take you step by step. From the tectonic movement, 50 million years, then we go to the age of monkeys. After the tectonic movement, 50 million years, it ushers in the age of monkeys. And monkeys, just moved in trees, and they were in Africa and in Asia, and also in South America. However, about 25, these monkeys, of course, have prehensive tails, they have stereoscopic vision, they have appendages on their arms, and they have a lot of fur. However, 25 million years, we see a mutation that is quite significant. This mutation happens amongst the monkeys that produces primates. Now, these primates are quite different from monkeys. A mutation is quite different. Like, for example, a mutation that happened in Europe 20,000 years ago, it separated black people from Europe, from white people. That led to the creation of white people, because white people also came from black people as a result of genetic mutation. Mutation is total. Mutation was created 25 million years, and the chimpanzee separates from the monkeys. So the primates are created from monkeys, and primates have particular characteristics which you must understand. These primates have a bigger brain. These primates, have got fat nails on their fingers, as opposed to crows, that monkeys and other things have. And these primates have, as a rule, a pair of breasts that they use to suckle their young. A pair, not 3, not 4, not 5. So a chimpanzee is close to a human being. Actually, we differ from the chimpanzee's DNA by 1 to 3%. So these primates have forward ambulation. They can move, forward. Forward ambulation. They move forward. They don't just jump. They move. They have forward ambulation. They have got, as a rule, I said, 2 pairs, of breasts, a pair of breasts, on their chest, and they have a bigger brain. Now, this chimpanzee is only in Africa and in Asia, and the lack of chimpanzee in Europe and in South America will forever separate these continents from the path, the forward flow that would lead to humans. Because humans emerge, from that relationship that they have with the chimpanzee. Now, in East Africa, we have the tectonic movement that separates East Africa and removes the forest cover. Exposed now, these chimpanzees that were exposed here, they have to do something very quickly, and I said they have to produce tyrosine 7. They have fur, which is a disadvantage. They have to shed their fur. Underneath it, there is white skin, which they have to remove and be able to produce tyrosine 7, and have to produce melanin to protect them against the ultraviolet rays, of the sun. Now, melanin is key and is significant. Melanin is a carbon that does not deteriorate over time. Melanin is produced by an enzyme called melatonin. And for melatonin to produce melanin, it needs a catalyst enzyme you call tyrosine 7. If you have no tyrosine 7, you cannot have black skin. It was this melanin that enabled the original chimpanzee to break away and go in a forward path that leads to human. It had to produce aquiline sweat glands, and you have to produce aquiline sweat glands. It had to produce tyrosine 7, which is essential for the production of melanin, which I have already outlined at length. The beauty of melanin. If you know how powerful melanin was and melanin is, you would not bleach your skin using jik or urine. You would not have all these lightening creams, because melanin also controls healing process. Melanin controls not only healing process, melanin also protects you against illness. Nothing heals unless melanin is involved. That is why, as a black person, if you go to Chisenyi, and you go to Namuongo, and you go to Mulago, and you see our people, and where they live, a person lives in total squalor. Total squalor, all the junk, all the rubbish, all the smell. You know, everywhere he passes, rats salute him from the side, mounting a 51 rat salute. You know, cockroaches hold conferences in their sitting room or in his plate. And every time the government will keep telling you that the economy has grown. Economy has grown by 5%. The economy has grown by 10%. But the slum grows as well. As the economy grows, the slum grows. As the economy grows, illness grows. As the economy grows, people who cannot afford fees grow. This is all. Even 5%. What is 5%? In fact, if you say the economy has grown by 6%, it means the economy did not grow by 94%. You should be crying and mourning, saying the economy did not grow by 96%. I stand accused as the governor of central bank. I stand accused as the minister of finance because I should have grown this economy. It has not even reached a statistical minimum of 33%. But let's put that aside. The point I'm making is that it is melanin that involves the black person to survive under these extreme conditions. Recently you heard that there were some so-called special forces from some United States of America that came to look for corn in the forest. 100 of them. When they went to Garamba, they stayed there for a short time. And you know what happened? 2 weeks. More than 26 of them sick completely. They didn't go any further. They did all their special duties in hospitals and some of these hotels. Special forces. But a Ugandan soldier, my friend, he can go into that forest. He can live there for a while. He can sit and listen to the bird sound because he had them a long time ago. He can listen to the snake sound and survive snake bites because the snake recognizes him. It says, didn't I see you like 5.5 million years ago? You and my relatives were cousins. In Africa, we had that corresponding cosmic connection. It is the legacy of African people. That corresponding cosmic connection that was bestowed upon the world. We should be celebrating the fact that we brought humanity on a forward path. We would have killed humanity at birth 5.5 million years ago, but we did not. What is significant is by 5.5 million years, humanity is already here in this land. So we should have a big shrine that celebrates humanity. We should be so proud that when humanity emerges, if God created the world, he created black people first. Because we are the people that were here at the beginning of humanity. It is here in Africa that everything is put together. It is here that different stages of human development, humanity passes through about 5 stages. The first stage is known as the Australopithecine. The oldest Australopithecine is from Ethiopia, the fossils discovered in Ethiopia, and they're carbon dated 5.5 million years. After that, you go to the Homo habilis that was discovered by Leakey in 1959. But before Leakey, there was a German called Wilhelm Katwinkel in 1911. In 1911, Katwinkel, who was part of the Nazis that were in Germany, he discovers in a place called Aludupai. I believe you had it in your school as Olduvai, but the place is called Aludupai. And in Aludupai Gorge, he discovered a human fossil. Now, so it is here in East Africa that at a stage of Homo erectus, and as a stage of Homo habilis, the African tool maker, the African emerges out of obscurity to establish himself not only as a tool maker, but as a thinker. It is hard for me to be able to put together things that African people have put together and have invented, even at the time. Because if the African had failed to perform his role as a leader of humanity, there would be no humanity today. If African people had gone to sleep, if African people have abdicated their responsibility, there will be no humanity today. As we mark this time or remember, let us just remember that we as a people need to learn how to take care of a business. What are we celebrating? We have just inaugurated a dam to give us electricity. But who built it? The Aga Khan Foundation, one of the richest men in the world, who actually bought Serena Hotel for $1. $1 United States dollar. He paid for Serena Hotel. My grandmother could have paid more, but she was not given an opportunity. When Aga Khan built Bujagari Dam, was there a performance requirement that he teaches our people, 50% of the people, to work on that dam, that he should not have finished the dam unless our people know how to build the one? No. No. There was no such a requirement. There was no requirement that he trains our people in making dams. Therefore, even when we build the second dam and the third dam, we shall be like Libya. Libya, when all the foreigners left Libya, after the Europeans, the so-called NATO, i.e. United States of America, because NATO and America are the same. Once they decided to pour out foreigners to pour out of Libya, the Libyans couldn't run even the oil refineries, because they had not trained Libyans in using oil refineries. So they started queuing now for fuel and importing it from everywhere. Actually, an interesting question. Why is there no oil refinery in Nigeria? Nigeria has also celebrated a jubilee, but no oil refinery in Nigeria. Do you know why? Because the African now, instead of being a Homo erectus, instead of standing tall, blessed of the sun, has started now imitating, following others. He is not Homo erectus. No. I don't know what. He is Homo followers. Homo followers. That is what he is. He is not saying, no way. We need a refinery and I don't need any other argument. We need to make our own cars and I don't need any other argument. We need to have our own plane and I don't need any argument. Why do we have to go and sit in Colonial to watch somebody sit in somebody else's plane and tilt it in the air? What is so exciting about a plane anyway that makes noise and flies high and somersaults like a bird? Why should we go to see that? Why can't we go to see a plane that our people have made themselves? That is what I want to see. That is what I will line up to see, even a small plane, even if it was a toy that somebody has made and it flies. There are certain things that the people have to do for themselves, and that's why I'm taking you back to Homo erectus. Because about 1 million years ago, Homo erectus, the African ancestor that stood upright, he invented fire. With fire, he could scare away all the animals. With fire, he could rest his food and it stays for a long time. With fire, he could keep warm so he doesn't die of hypothermia. Do you know what Homo erectus went through? But he took care of business. You want to be an African leader? Take care of your business. Where is your railway line? How can you be a country celebrating and you don't have a railway line? How? What are you doing? No railway. You can't even put a wagon on a train and it stays there. And it travels from here up to Kabari and it arrives in time. And you have traveled in comfort and you haven't changed the train. And then you have to celebrate and invite all these heads of state to come to us and see what? And it is always the same faces that you see. Same faces. Different clothes, but same faces. Eating, drinking, ending up with dancing. That is what we Africans are supposed to be known for. Hymn singing, rhythmic fools. Give them dance, African. African doesn't need a railway, we are told. No, African doesn't need to make a plane. It is an economic disadvantage. It betrays the economies of scale. What are we doing to ourselves? Why are we doing such a things? Why are we being so silly? You want me to respect you as a leader? Then give me a plane that you have made yourself. Give me a car that you have manufactured yourself. Maybe begin assembling it and do an engine. If you can't do a whole car, do a shock absorber or do even make a wheel spanner. The only thing that we manufacture in Uganda ourselves is probably guns. Yeah, we probably need them. But the only thing we manufacture, no car, no jet, no plane. We don't even have an airline. Even a small country like Swaziland has an airline, Swazi Air. Even a small country like Lesotho, like Malawi, we don't even have a plane. We have planes that fly over and excite people. We do not make nothing. We don't make anything. I remember when President Museveni came to power, he was saying to people that we are a country that doesn't make a safety pin. And we were all excited. Eventually, here is a leader that knows what to say. Do we make a safety pin now? I don't think so. Just think of one thing alone, articulated symbolic language. An African being able to put together a language, because African languages are the most sophisticated. They have about 120 sounds, when languages like English has just approximately 30 sounds. So most of the characters and the sophistication that you find in African languages are so sophisticated. But imagine a language, to put together a symbolic language. With language you can communicate your intention. I need to grow food here. I need to go and I'm coming back. So people don't stand here thinking, what is he doing? With language you can avoid conflict, which had led to the eradication of other branches of humanity which could not communicate. A person sees you with a huge stone and you are trying to crush nuts and he thinks, oh my God, what is he doing? He's going to hit me with a stone, and conflict starts there. But now you can communicate your intention and you can eliminate conflicts. Language brings people together. Language, you could quote a woman now and begin to establish a family. With language, you can pass on experience learned onto your children so that that experience is transformed. They don't have to repeat the same thing that you have done. With language, you can remember and tell people where very good water is, where you can warn people against your enemies. Articulated symbolic language. Just giving humanity a language alone is a task so powerful, is so monumental. We are talking now with the language of Africa. Every language that you see on earth is copied from our language. The invention that African people put together. First aid, medication. A man falls off a rock, injures himself. You have to give him first aid so he stops bleeding. That requires a larger brain. That requires, and if the African had not stopped this man bleeding, if the African had not invented first aid and had not invented medicine, what would have happened to the original humanity? What would have happened to them? They would have stopped. We would not be there. You would not be sitting on TV watching me. You would not be hearing your story, because this story is able to be told using articulated symbolic language. The story is told by me because I carry the genes. And not only that, not only do I carry the genes, I inherit characteristics, certain characteristics, including immunity that was passed on to me by our ancestors. The inventions like fire that the African is able to put together at the stage of Homo erectus. It is at this stage, the oldest Homo erectus discovered, of course, by Liki and Kimoya Kimeyu in Nalia Katome near Lake Turkana, carbon dated by Oxford 1.5 million years. At that time, there is nobody else on earth. It is just us. And you teachers listening to me, stop being silly. Stop being silly telling people, Areman, hunters and gatherers. That is not Africa. It is not the African story that you must teach. You must teach humanity going through several stages. Australopithecines, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, then Homo sapien. At the stage of Homo erectus, African discover fire. And this fire enables the African to scare away animals. It enables the African to cook food. It enables the African to keep warm. Just the invention of fire, the sitting down on top of a hill and seeing lightning strike a tree and crawling near it and knowing the sun has come closer and getting that fire. So so that it keeps you warm, so that it cooks your food. You use it for landscaping. The African memory of fire is so strong. That is why in churches everywhere, that is why in temples, that is why in homes, the fire had to be lit and it had to be kept burning. I know that in most of these jubilees that people are celebrating, although we are celebrating it after 50 years, other than 30 years, in most of these jubilees that people are celebrating, they also put a fire. But this fire is a fire that was invented by our ancestors about 1.5 million years. At the stage of Homo erectus, the African leaves Africa to populate the rest of the world. First, he goes and populates South Africa. That is why we have found remains of the African in Swaziland's cave, in Swaziland and the Borobos. In Borobos, we have found artifacts that the African people put together about 120,000 years that show incredible brilliance. Some tools, some ladles that you use to eat and cook, 120,000 years. The African is already, doing this. He populates, what we now call North Africa, and then crosses into Europe and crosses into Asia, following the Erasmus of Suez, and also populates Asia. At that time, there is only one race on earth, and that is black people. There's only one people, and that is the Africoid race. Now, from that stage of Homo erectus, you go to modern man, whom we call Homo sapien. And at the stage of Homo sapien, before the emergence of anybody else, the African also demonstrates the most incredible brilliance, because it is Homo sapien that gives us the domestication of plants and animals. After the Sahara, the Ice Age, the Sahara was a grassland, and it doesn't begin to become a desert until after 7,000 BC. But it is this domestication of animals and plants. It was the African that gives us barley and wheat. It is the African that gives us bananas. In fact, the oldest bananas were discovered in this land, in Eastern Africa, in Uganda, by a man called Julius Leju. Bananas here, all the 6,000, carbon dated 6,000, years ago, 6,000 BC. So it is the domestication of plants. Just imagine to domesticate a cow, to go in the forest or in the wilderness and get an animal and come and train it so that it becomes there and it begins to feed you with food to eat and for yourself. That is brilliance that you cannot measure. That is brilliance that you cannot put together. If African people had not exhibited this brilliance, we would not be there today. But look at us now. Look at us. A people who invented nothing, their children of today are not able to make anything. Imagine if you had a home, because a country is like a home. A country is like a home. I come to visit you in a home, or I'm your wife, and I say to you, husband, my father is coming to visit, and also his, my brothers, and they are going to stay here. And you say, oh, you know what? We don't have a mattress. And we don't have a blanket. So what we need to do is when they come, we shall go and rent a muzigo nearby, a small house, a small room, and we will accommodate them there. And what about plates? We don't have plates. We will borrow them from neighbors. How will we pick them from the train station? Oh, we will hire a car, or we will go and borrow a car from somebody else. You are a house that doesn't have a fork. You are a house that doesn't have a bed. You are a house that doesn't have bed sheets. You are a house that doesn't have a well where you can fetch your own water. You are a house that doesn't have a granary where you can keep food. You are a house that doesn't have chickens running around the compound. You are a house that doesn't have a book. That is Uganda of today. That is Kenya of today. That is Tanzania of today. The land of the mighty giant Ethiopians, the tallest, the wisest, the most just of all men, is now a country that doesn't have a railway. It is a country you have guests coming. Like in a country called Uganda. You have guests coming for the Jubilee. Where do you accommodate them? A whole country doesn't even have a single hotel, because they were advised by their children whom they brought into the world to sell everything. Sell your train, sell your airfield, sell your plane, Sell everything that you can see. Now, when you get guests, you have to run now to take them. Just like the family that takes them to Muzigo, you have to go and accommodate them in somebody's hotel. You have to beg that person to cook the food. You can't even dictate that the food is good because you are not the one cooking it. A country is like a home, just like the Australopithecine, just like the Homo sapien, just like the Homo habilis learned to take care of the business, to invent, to put together systems. It is the same thing that this country must do. This country must have a railway line. It must connect Kabale and Gulu and Ruwero and Mitiana and Jinja and Tororo. It must connect Hoima by a railway. You travel from here up to Rwanda, you have traveled in comfort, and you have not changed the train, and therefore you will arrive in time. The country must make its own planes, not even just having an airline. You must make planes. Why do you have schools? Thousands of schools, kindergarten, primary school, high school, and you can't learn how to plot a plane? A plane has already been invented already. I have a bicycle mechanic who made a plane, a helicopter. The Wright brothers that made the first plane were bicycle mechanics. Now you can't make a train and you want to celebrate. Celebrate what? You should be crying. Crying that you can't make a plane. Crying that you can't make a train. Crying that you can't make an engine of a car. Crying that you can't make a rotor, even a small machine that cuts grass. You should be crying. The celebrations that they have all over Africa should be days of mourning. The president should stand amongst his people and say, I stand here to ask for forgiveness and atonement. I have failed to galvanize this country to make a plane. I have failed to galvanize this country to make a microscope. I have failed to galvanize this country to make a tractor. I have failed to galvanize this country to have silos so that they can keep food that can keep them running for a long time. A president should wear sackcloth instead of wearing clothes made in Thailand and made in Germany, suits made in Germany and in Belgium. What about if the Belgians ask their clothes back? Our president would go naked. You don't make even clothes that you wear. You don't make even your own underwear. Who makes the underwear for a president? An underwear is something so private, so secret. Because remember, Reverend Frank Chikani in South Africa, when the apartheid system of South Africa, under Battalion 77 of Walter Basong, they were making underwears and lacing them with pathogens, with toxins. You know that when Chikani wore the underwear, he fell sick and he almost died. You can put medicine in an underwear. How can you be a president that doesn't even make an underwear? How can you be a president that doesn't make your own socks? How can you be a president that doesn't make your own shoes? And you want to celebrate. What celebrate what? You shouldn't be celebrating. You, the president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni. You, the president of Tanzania, Jakaya Kikwete. You, the president Kibaki of Kenya. You, the president, you have just missed Meles Zenawi. He knew the point. Zenawi would not have celebrated a jubilee. No. You should be crying. You should hold your head in shame. Shame, you don't make your own underwear. Shame, you don't make your own clothes. You have to ask people in Thailand. Can you imagine how short the people in Thailand are? They are the people that make our own clothes that we wear. At least wear kente from Ghana. It is handmade. Go to people in Ghana. Go to people in Mali. Go to people in Nigeria and learn how to make silk and brocade. We used to make silk. Now the President Museveni, don't you know that ancient Egypt extended up to Uganda? Don't you know that Africans in Egypt used to make silk and brocade? Don't you know that that was the clothes that the Batwes wore when they were ruling the intracrustan region? Don't you know that they taught us how to make clothes? That they taught us, they used to trade in coffee, in gold, that they would make, they'd get copper and had smelting, and they would smelt iron. Don't you know the had achieved higher temperatures with their iron smelting? If they could do this at that time, time. What about you? What about you? What should we be celebrating? Show me a hotel that the country runs that is ours. Show me a plane that we have made. Show me a tractor that we do. Show me even a hoy that we can attach to a tractor. Show me even a rope that we get from Saiso that we can put together. We should be having a national day of mourning. We should be wearing sackcloth. We should be holding our head in shame because we have let our ancestors down. We are tool makers. But we have gone into this ridiculous education system and it has turned it into a republic of nothing. We should change the name Uganda and we become a republic of nothing. Republic of don't make nothing. Oh, you arrive at the airport. Oh, where are you from, sir? Oh, I'm from the Republic of Nothing. Republic of Nothing? Yes. And how did you derive your name? Well, we derive our name because after 50 years of what we called independence, we started noticing that we were not making anything. And we actually had nothing. So we decided to call ourselves a Republic of Nothing. Oh, sir, that is very strange, sir. Don't you make anything? Don't you make cars? No, sir, we don't make any cars. Well, we have a university. They said they made an electric car, but that had been made in America in the 60s. So they just copied the design. And are you mass producing this electric car? Oh, no, sir, no. But you have a lot of sun. Don't you make solar? Solar products, a solar panel is something easy to make. Oh, no, sir, we don't make any solar panels. We don't. What about a safety pin? We don't make a safety pin. We don't make any matches. And surely you must make planes where your people fly. No, sir. What about wagons? It is just a piece of metal put together with some wheels. Even children could make that. For your railways. Oh, we don't even have railways. And the person will look at you and say, I agree. You should actually be called a republic of nothing. We are a republic of nothing. We should celebrate nothing because we make nothing. We should stand there and say we are a republic of nothing. That should be our anthem. Instead of saying, oh, Uganda, may God uphold thee, we should say, oh, you men of nothing, who live in the republic of nothing, that manufactures not a piece of plastic, because plastic is from oil, that sit there bickering even about an oil refinery. And 2 years later, nobody has made money out of oil other than an Irish company that made $3 billion. Who are you women from the Republic of Nothing that has no airline, no railway, that does not even make a tractor even when they deem it necessary, that always talk about the economy growing by only 6% and failing by 94%? Men from the Republic of Nothing learn from Homo erectus. Homo erectus invented fire. And if it wasn't for Homo erectus, we wouldn't be here. Homo erectus lived on these lands and he's standing on that cloud of eternity and looking at us and saying, you are really a republic of nothing. A total republic of nothing. You don't even make a wheelbarrow. You don't even make a spoke for a bicycle. You don't even make, what do you make? You import everything every day from China, from Japan, from wherever. And you tax your citizens. You tax. And then you stand on the podium and talk about how the tax base has grown and it has widened. Tax. Nations from history, nations from before have collapsed because of taxes. No leader ever exults in how much the people have been taxed. And we celebrate the opening of Jagali, built by the Aga Khan, the richest man in the world. He probably owns Uganda by now. He owns Air Uganda, which is Uganda Airlines. If you want to sit somewhere nice and eat something, you sit in a hotel that is owned by the Aga Khan. And if you want to switch on a light, then you have to get it from electricity that wisdom has been done by the Aga Khan. And if you should survive the Aga Khan, you can't really survive his brother Sudhir, Ruparelia. If you want to go to a bank, it is owned by Sudhir. If you want to rent a house, it is owned by Sudir. If you want to go to beauty school, it is owned by Sudir. If you want to hold a government function, welcome to Sudir. If you want to hold a flower, it is produced by Sudir. The Republic of Sudir. Maybe we call our country the Republic of Sudir. That would make sense because Sudir owns everything. And if you don't like the name, the Republic of Sudir, then let us change this. And we call it the Republic of Aga Khan. And if you don't like the Republic of Aga Khan, then stick to my name, Republic of Nothing. But in terms of celebrating the Jubilee, there is very little to celebrate. Stand up and be men like Homo erectus. 1.5 million years, Homo erectus walked on these lands. Homo erectus discovered fire. In fact, in Ritori in Tanzania, Homo erectus held his wife and they walked on a lake and he left a permanent footprint and said, this is how a man and a woman should relate. Here in this land, where humanity has lived for 5.5 million years, so the birth of modern man that we call Homo sapien. Modern man, Homo sapien. Oxford carbon dated the fossil that was discovered by Leke and Kimoa Kimeyu, 130,000. Now, most of the physicists and scientists said, no, molecular biology could probably give us a different date. And that is why Rebecca Kahn and Stone King from Berkeley, California, looked at the mitochondria DNA. That is the DNA that a woman passes on to the child without going through the filtration process. When a man unites with a woman, the man passes on a DNA and the woman passes on a DNA. Almost in equal sequence, although the woman passes on more. This is known as nuclear DNA. But the woman, being suspicious of the man sometimes, has a DNA that she passes on to the child without going through the filtration process. This DNA is known as mitochondria DNA. Now, you can tell who is your mother by following the mitochondria DNA up to the first woman. And that is what Rebecca Kahn did in Berkeley, California, 1984. The result of the study were published in Time magazine. I believe it appeared in May 11th, 1987. And that is a black woman holding a fruit, giving it to a man, and they called her the African Eve. Humanity has lived here 5.5 million years. Humanity started developing tools here 3.5 million years. Humanity stood upright and started inventing things and taking care of business at the stage of Homo erectus. And humanity of modern man, you and I, a man so beautiful, so bedecked with great sun like your own, so well put together, so looking forward, so thinking of tomorrow, so investing in his community. A man taking care of business, protecting his family and his relatives and his home, protecting his community and investing in it. A man who had lived today without the brainwashing of the colonial education system that gave us all these brainwashed people speaking English and all the other languages. That man, if he had been here, he would say, Uganda don't celebrate. First have your railway line. First make a plane and have your airline. First have a factory that makes boats. First have a factory that does all the storage. Show me your potato fields. Show me your silos where you keep food that you open up when your people are hungry. Show me your road construction departments and the tractors that you make yourself. Then only then can you celebrate. I am Homo sapien. I have lived here from 80 million years. From here I went to populate the world. I was Tayari in Europe 30 million years. Not 30 million years, 30,000 years. Because the first people to populate Europe were black people. Uganda, I am Homo sapien, and I am telling you, take care of your business and cancel the celebrations. There is nothing to celebrate, otherwise we'll name you the Republic of Nothing.